All right, let's cut the music. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. We are back with some more Tabnine Labs. So kind of continue, I guess not continuing on from last week. We're going to be doing something different. But last week was our first one. I came on and we played around with creating a Chrome extension, which I'd never done before. And it was pretty fun. And Tabnine helped me out a lot. This week, today, we're going to be working on a CLI using Rust. So once again, I'm going to be asking Tabnine for some help. I used to do some Rust, like, oh gosh, I want to say like a couple years ago. So like I remember a lot of it, but I'm sure there's a lot that I don't remember. And so I thought it would be fun to use it to do a CLI. Gosh, like I've done CLI before, I think. I've used it to create Lambda functions, which I thought was really cool. Being able to compile the function and deploy it. Like I felt like that was going to be faster. I don't know if the infrastructure was ready for it or not. And then I've seen people like Chris, what is his last name? Chris Biscardi creating games in Rust using Bevy. So that's one of his favorite libraries. And then fun fact, if you are using Tabnine, Tabnine's written in Rust. So like all of the stuff on the back end, I don't think like the extensions themselves, but yeah, so we're a big Rust shop here. So yeah, we'll do that today. And so I was once again chatting with Christopher, one of our new Tabnine employees over on the marketing side. And we were talking about how a lot of people are remote now. I know some people are going back to the office, but there's still a lot of us that are remote, and there's still a lot of offices that are kind of like in different places. And yeah, I don't know if you can see it whenever I share my screen, probably not. But I have like 3 clocks up in my status bar to kind of like keep me apprised of like what time it is in different places that my coworkers are working. And I figured an easy CLI to create would be one that brings back the weather. I feel like that's an easy API. And there's some fun things we can do. But what I wanted to be able to do is kind of like not just get the weather for where I am, but like see information about like where my coworkers are. So, my coworker in Vegas, like what time is it there? What is the weather like? Things like that. And so I figured that'd be a good way to be able to like store information that you want to persist. So that way, when you run the CLI, you don't have to like enter all that information again. And I thought it was something that we could, start slow and iterate on. So like last time, we're going to kind of start with a planning stage where we just going to talk to Tabnine and ask it, kind of give it information about what we want to do, and then ask it for advice on how to do it. Like I said, it's been a while since I've created a REST application. So, I think some hand-holding would do me some good. What is this? Okay. All right. I'm also working on like I just got a notification of one of the blog posts that I'm working on. So there should be a blog post coming out this week. Not about what we streamed last week. That will be out next week. And then this one will be out the week after. But, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see a lot of content being coming out from all of this. So if anytime during this you have a question, please feel free to post it in however it is that you're watching. All of that information gets aggregated and sent to me. Happy to answer any questions here. If there's something that you want to see, like how to use Tabnine in a certain way, different things, happy to show that off during these times and turn that into content as well. If you have not seen the announcement. Yeah, that's a better word. If you have not seen the announcement, we just released our connection to Jira. So if you work at a place where you use Jira, you can now connect to Jira, pull tickets in as context, and use that to help you generate code and tests and other things. And then even, which I think is the cool thing, validate the code against the ticket. So like, did what you do satisfy the ticket? So that's interesting. If you haven't seen it, go to our blog and check out the newest blog post that Shantanu had been working on, and there's some examples and things like that. So I think this is some really exciting stuff, hooking up our AI coding assistants with I think they're called PPMs, Project Portfolio Management, something like that. And then also the things that we're getting ready to release in the future around our coaching, which will show up in things like pull requests and merge requests, things like that. So the future is very exciting, and it's coming at us very quickly. So yeah, but let's get started. I'm going to hit this button here and hide over here in this corner. But like before, I'm starting with just kind of a Tabnine open on a blank directory. So that way I can kind of talk to it. So again, I use Claude 3.5 Sonnet right now, but with Tabnine, you have access to all of these lovely models. Tabnine protected if you work someplace that really cares about privacy and protection from copyright stuff. And then we have some other more mainstream one, Command R Plus. We just did a Tabnine Live about that with one of the engineers from Cohere, who put that out. That was very interesting. You can check that out on our YouTube. And then GPT 4.0. I think there's like GPT 4.01. I think we're still looking into that, but that's a possibility of something that could show up in the future. If you are interested in things like that, you should definitely like shout it out on LinkedIn or Twitter. We watch all those things, and so we love to hear your feedback. But yeah, I'm going to go forward with Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Okay, so what do we know? We know we want to create a CLI, and we want to create that using Rust. In the past, I have created CLIs using TypeScript with Oak Cliff and some other things. I wrote like a fun little CLI for ordering Domino's pizza, which would actually work. It's using the actual Domino's CLI, but I don't know if they have like a client library for Rust. So today we're going to create one that just brings back the weather, and we're going to start small. So like I don't want to ask the AI to do everything all at once. Like I want this to be an iterative process, and I want to be able to like make sure things work along the way. So I need it to create. So we're going to create a CLI in Rust that grabs the weather. We're going to use the Open Weather Map API. So it's got a pretty nice free tier that I don't think I'm going to like run over. So I set that up and I got my key. Hopefully enough time has passed, so that's going to be active. And we'll start very small, just by grabbing the weather and maybe passing in the city. But we'll see how this will work, because I don't even have a project started. So let's find out how to do all of that. So I'm going to just kind of, like what I said earlier, I'm going to give it what I want to do. So I want to create a CLI in Rust that gets the current weather using the Open Weather Map API. How would I do that? Just going to talk to it like it's a person. So here we go. Certainly, I can help you create a CLI in Rust that fetches the current weather using the Open Weather Map API. Here's a step-by-step guide to create this CLI. First, create a new Rust project. So they're just calling it Weather CLI. Add the necessary dependencies to the cargo file. So let's see if I remember some of these. So we've got request. This is the library that takes care of making GET and POST requests for APIs. So that's good. Tokyo. This is a library that handles async. Serta. That is Serta and Serta JSON. That's going to be for helping us. What's the word? Turn things into JSON and then parse it back out. We've got .env, which I'm imagining is going to handle working with a .env file. So we do have a key that we're going to have to use for the API. So that's a good place to store it. And then clap. I did a little bit of research on this, but clap is kind of what people are calling the gold standard for creating CLIs in Rust. So looks like a good set of dependencies. And then it says we need to create a .env file in the project root to store our API key. Cool. Now let's create the main program in the source main RS. So we've got the start of a program here. Lots of different things. We can ask him what all this means in a bit. But yeah, we're loading our .env file, parsing the args. And responding with the weather using println. Okay. I could have just like continued and read on. So the code does the following. It uses clap to parse the command line arguments for the city name, uses .env to load the API key from the .env file, defines structs to deserialize the JSON response from the Open Weather API, makes an asynchronous HTTP request to the API using request, parses the JSON responses and prints the weather information. And then we can build and run the CLI. And then we've got kind of an overall summary here. So this will fetch and display the current weather for New York or any city you specify. Remember to replace your API key. Sure. This CLI provides basic implementation. You can expand it by adding more features like error handling, support for different units, Fahrenheit, or displaying more weather data as needed. Cool. So I think this is going to be a good start for what we want to do, just to get something like that is a CLI up and running. And then also we can check and make sure that it's bringing back information from the Open API map API, Open Weather Map API. There we go. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go up here to the top, and I'm going to create a new project. I don't know if I want to call it Weather CLI. So we're going to do cargo new and then the name of the project. So I'm going to go over here. Let's go into my, just the top level, my developer folder, cargo new, and we're going to call this something with a team. Man, what is it? Like the hardest thing in computer science is naming things. We're going to call it we'll say team oh no, removed support for Sublime text. I will pass that on. I think it still exists somewhere, but definitely, get other people who are using Sublime text that want to try Tabnine. If you can, like most things, if you can get a group, we will see what we can do. But thanks for bringing that to our attention. I believe our name came from like Sublime too. So if you think about it, if you're a Sublime user, let's call it, I don't know. We're going to call it we'll call it, I don't know, team viewer. All right. So we're going to create that cargo. We're going to go into that directory. Ooh, it's always fun. It's always fun to like switch around different languages whenever you're using Starship RS, which is also written in Rust. A little crab shows up, and I did make sure that I updated my Rust to the latest version this morning. So we're at 1.81.0. Unless they dropped another version since since this morning. Cool. So we're going to go into that. I can go ahead and open up a new code window here. Let's go ahead here. Move that around. The other thing I did today, and I don't know how many of you are using this, but I'm a VS Code person. You'll see me do most of my stuff in VS Code, but they have different profiles, and I took some time and I created a profile just for Rust, and I made it this cute little squirrel here, but I took out all of the extensions that I normally use for JavaScript and web applications, things like that, and removed it out. So hopefully it will speed it up, and we're focused on things that I need for Rust. Of course, okay, restart. All right, so if we take a look at this is what we've got. We need to add the necessary dependencies. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to go into our cargo toml, and I'm just going to paste them in. Wonderful. So we've got the dependencies. We're going to create our .m file. So let's do that. New file. .env. We will go ahead and copy this, paste. All right, and now this is where I am going to go grab my key. I'm going to stick it in, and I'm going to close the file, and we're not going to open it anymore. because I don't want to leak my key. So let's go back over to here. Whoop, hey. And I am going to find that key. All right. All right, my key goes here. Save, closing the file. And we're back. Cool. Now we can, let's see, now create the main program. So we're going to go to main.rs, which has got like a fun little hello world. So we're just going to replace all of that with what's in here. So I'm just going to go down here and say copy and replace it all. So far, there's no squigglies or anything that seems to be unhappy. So that's nice. I do have Rust Analyzer going. So that's always been helpful in the past. All right. So what do we got now? Yep. So we should be able to build and run the CLI. Okay. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to bring up my terminal. And we are going to run cargo build. And we're going to watch it build. It really reminds me of back in the day whenever I regularly wrote with a compiled language. Is anybody a fan of XKCD? With the sword fighting while you're compiling? Yeah. That was peak development back there. Okay. So we're just going to test it out to make sure what Tabnine gave us actually works. And then we'll look at modifying this to fit our needs. So we're going to run this command. And weather in New York, the temperature is 19.36 Celsius. The humidity is 62%. The description is overcast clouds. And I can tell you that that's pretty accurate. Atticus and I just took a walk around in Central Park. And, I am enjoying that it's hoodie weather. But I need to like actually swap out my shorts. So like I just put on a hoodie and we went. Okay. So cool. So that works. We were able to tell Tabnine what we wanted to do, and it gave us back a working application. And we kind of took its word for it. So let's take a look right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the code lens, and I'm going to ask it to explain what's going on here so we can kind of get a better idea of this main function. If you haven't used Rust before, it's very similar to like other languages where there is a main function, which is the kind of the entry into the application. So we're going to have it explain. Cool. So we've got, let's see, the Tokyo main, this attribute macro sets up Tokyo runtime for asynchronous execution. So that's what allows us to use async await. And then we've got the declaration of the main function as asynchronous, and it specifies that it returns a result type, where the success case is an empty tuple, and the error case is of type error from the request crate. So if this fails, then it's going to push up the error that it gets here from this await to the main. The .m.ok, this loads our environment variable, the one that I secretly put into the .env, and again, we're never going to open that file on the screen. And then the args.parse, so this is parses the command line arguments using clap based on the args struct defined earlier. So here is our args struct. So we've got, right now, we're just doing the city. Then we've got the URL. So this constructs the URL for the request. So Here it is. So we're using format, and we are using it to replace this query and the API key with these values. The API that we grab from the .env, and then the city that we grab from the args. And you can see we put the city in with the --. Cool. Let's see. Print line statements, print the weather information from the response, and the response is set up in a struct up here. So weather response is of type weather. So we see the weather is made up of main, which is the main weather, which is the temperature and the humidity. And then the weather, which is, it says vector of weather description, which I think is just, so it's a continuous growable array type. So I think it's just the string where it holds that description. Yeah, cool. All right. See, so this code demonstrates asynchronous programming in Rust, error handling with the question mark operator, and the use of external crates for tasks such as HTTP request, command line argument parsing, and environment variable management. Awesome. Okay. Let's see, how do we want to do this? Let's ask about errors. So whenever we did the first one, and I'm actually going to go over here and I'm going to close out this window because we don't need it anymore. Come here. Okay, so we are good, and we are going to go to this one now. So let's ask about errors. So are there any places where errors need to be handled? So yeah, there are a few places where error handling could be improved. Here's an updated version with the code with better error handling. Okay. And then let's see what it does. Okay, so this version handles the following improvements. Change the return type to results, empty tuple, box, dyn, standard, error to allow more flexible error types. Use map error to provide more information, or more informative error message when the API key is not found. So that's good. I feel like that's one of the main problems that I have whenever I do things is like, you want to make sure that the .m file isn't like stored in Git, but then I go to another computer and I pull it down and I don't have I don't have the .m, and I try to run it, and then I'm like, why does this not work? Because I'm getting a generic error. So this will be nice for that. Added error handling for JSON parsing. Okay. Used get 0 and map to safely access the first weather description, providing a fallback if not available. These changes make the code more robust and informative in case of errors. So let's take a look here. So here's our response, and we're mapping error. We're mapping the error and returning failed to parse JSON. So again, that better message. I'm going to go ahead and accept this, and then at the end here, which we're doing at the end, because we have to return something. It's a strongly typed language. We are returning an OK with an empty tuple, which means like, yay, everything's great. So let's go ahead and insert that and figure out where it's not happy. Unused input. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . I think that's just from the change that we made, because we're using a generic error here where we were specifically grabbing this type of error and passing it up. So I think I can just remove that. And I think quick fix. Yeah, remove the whole use. And we're back to green. So good. Easy peasy. So good. We took care of some errors, but maybe we need to do. So what happens? Let's go ahead and compile this. Build. Okay, so it's built. And we're going to run it, but we're going to not pass it a city. Cool. So right now, it looks like the following required parameters were not provided. So right now, city is a required parameter. And I think this is another thing that's kind of nice that we get kind of right off the bat with the clap library is we have this help. So we can do -- help. And you can see that there are options. So right now, all we have is -c or --c and providing a city, asking for help, and then also a version. So what I would like to do is I don't want you to have to put in a city every time, right? So we want to be able to persist this information. So okay. Let's do a new conversation, and trying to think how I want to do this. The other thing that I want to do is I feel like we are going to get to the point where we're doing too much into the main function. And so I would really like to pull the get weather piece into its own kind of utility file. So let's see how it will help with that first. I'm going to close that for right now. I'm going to start by not selecting anything here. So that way it's going to use basically the whole open window as the context, right? Because I want them to see, all of this. And so let's ask, can we extract the weather API call into a separate function in its own module. There are modules here. So let's do that. Try to clean up the code a bit. Certainly, we can extract the weather API call into a separate function in its own module. Here's how we can do that. First, let's create a new file called weatherapi.rs in the source directory. In this file, we can define our new module and the function to make the API call. So yeah, let's do that. And I'm going to try this button again. So we're pulling out that information. Here are the information about the structs, and then the get weather function that currently takes the city and the API key. And then in your main file, you can update the code to use this new module. Okay. Cool. So let's hit new file. So that sticks that into the file. I'm going to hit save. And what was the name of this? It was weather API.rs, I believe. Okay. take a look at what it did. Yeah, it did that weird .r. So we'll get rid of that. I'm going to go back and check and make sure that that was the name. Remember when I said we were not going to open that file again? Anyway, I can create a new one later. So I'm going to go back and check. Okay, so it says weather underscore API.rs. Great, we did that. And we put all of that information in. And so now in your main.rs file, you can update the code to use this new module. So let's go over here. I don't have the selected line intact. We'll just ask, what changes to the main function are needed to include the main weather structure to use the get weather function? Okay, to use the get weather function in the main function, you'll need to make the following changes. So let's bring in, I guess we need to add these. All right. And then down here, it looks like, so instead of this, we're going to say let weather equal this stuff. And it looks like it's taking care of the borrowing stuff for us, which is always fun with Rust. Cool. And then, so instead of response now, this is all going to be weather. So let's take all of that and do weather. And we got two things here. Oh, we don't need this anymore. All right. What else do we got here? Oh, we don't need these structs because those are now inside of that module file. So that cleans that up. It looks like deserialize is no longer needed. So let's just go, yep, remove that. And then that's not needed as well. Quick fix, remove unused part, which did not work. That worked though. Okay, and we're back to everything looking nice. So let's bring back up, and again, we're just going to make sure that this works. So let's go cargo build, pull in New York. Still works, great. And that's a lot cleaner. Our main file is like 38 lines now, including that ending space. There was a question down here. Oh, I think it's gone. Cool. So we'll keep that for right now. And so now we need to start setting up the different coworkers. So we need to be able to set kind of preferences for the person who's running it. So I'm going to do new conversation. And let's get rid of that for right now. So let's say how would I prompt the user to enter a city name? Yeah, a city name. And store it and persist it across multiple executions of the program. That sounds like a good question. So to prompt the user for a city name and persist it across multiple executions, you can modify the arg struct and add a new function to handle user input and storage. Here's how you can implement this. Okay. So this is having it get or prompt city. Okay, so they are just storing it in that file. The code adds a new function, get or prompt city, that handles reading the last used city from a file, prompting the user. The args struct is modified to make the city field optional, allowing us to prompt for it if it's not provided in the command line. Remember to update your main function to use this new functionality. This implementation will persist the city across multiple executions by saving it to a file named last city in the same directory as your executable. I don't know if that's exactly what I want. It says, how can I modify the code to allow the user to select a default city for future use? What's that? So to allow a user to select a default city for future use, we can modify the get weather function import and add a new function to handle the default city selection. Here's how you can implement this while maintaining the current indentation. See, this modification imports two additional functions, get default city and set default city and get default city. These should be implemented in the API weather module to handle saving and retrieving the default city. Let's see. So whenever I do this kind of stuff using like Oak Cliff, we usually save the information in like a config file in the user directory. So can we save the information in a config file in the user's, oh, it was doing it, user's home directory? Can we save the city Let's see what it says. Certainly, we can modify the import and add a new function to handle saving the city in a config file in the user's home directory. Here's the modified code. I don't feel like that's all of it. Okay, let's see. Let's try this. I'm going to highlight the main function because most of the stuff's going to go there. I'm going to do a new conversation. All right. So let's say if no city is provided, try to read the city from a config file stored in the home directory. if no config file is found, well, we're getting there. No config file is found, prompt the user to enter the city and store it in the config file. Ooh. All right. So this we got a lot of help with the prompt from Tabnine itself. So we're going to say if no city is provided, try to read the city from a config file stored in the home directory. If no config file is found, prompt the user to enter the city and store it in the config file. Okay, so we got modified. Okay. All right, so what do we got here? Here's the modified main function that implements the requested functionality. So we've got if args.city that is empty, we are going to so it's creating a dot file for weather CLI config, which is kind of okay. And then so if okay contents, it's going to read. Otherwise, it's going to say enter the name. It's going to do read line from the args.city. And then it's going to write it. Okay, and then we got grabbing the API key, doing the weather, args.city. So is it right? Is it writing that? So args.city is equal to args.city.trim. Okay, so I think it's going to use it. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Let's insert this code, and then up here, I don't know if this is gonna like. I think I can just do this. Quick fix. Oh no, darn! I thought I was gonna do like the like what I'm used to in TypeScript and all that. I can just tell it to add it. So we're gonna insert that, which should make that happy. What is this? Unresolved import dir. No external crate dirs. So what I'm going to do is let's try to fix it with Tabnine. Okay. So I think what we need to do is actually put this into our dependencies. So I am going to discard this because if we go over to our cargo toml, we can just add that in. Whoop. And I think that will make it happy. There we go. So in order to use dirs, we needed to add that crate. All right, so let's see if it works. So let's do cargo build. And then we're going to run, but instead of passing a city, okay. So it's still saying that the city is required. And I think that is because we need to go up here and change this. So let's new conversation. Make city optional. Cool. So yeah, we just need to put an option around it. So insert. All right. And now this is not happy. So let's try fix with Tabnine here. Tabnine, fix this code. No, that's not being helpful. So it's if city is none. So, all right, so this is not doing. So if city is none, all right. So if the city is none, that means it wasn't passed in. And so it's going to get the config path. It's going to read. Where is content? Content. So it's going to come back as a string. What's it saying? Try wrapping the expression in sum. Okay, so that's happy. Mismatch types. Let's see what this does. Processing. Okay, let's discard that. I wonder if maybe I should have just asked Tabnine all along. So let's back up. Okay. So we're back. And then, so let's go new conversation. So what changes need to be made to allow city to be optional? Okay. Let's see, to make city argument optional, you'll need to modify the struct and update the main function to handle the case when no city is provided. So yeah, so here is this piece. So instead of just a string, we need optional string, which makes that unhappy. Let's show diff. So instead of let mute args, args.parse, that's just gonna be args. We're doing a match. So if it's none, in the case where it's none, so if there is some C, then we're just going to return C, and that's going to be city. So what was basically what was passed in is going to keep going. If there wasn't anything passed in, this is where we're going to read from the home directory, from the weather CLI config, and our else case here. Well, yeah, so we're going to let that equal that. If there is content, then we are going to use that content. Otherwise, we are going to prompt for the city name and write that, and then we're returning the city. So with Rust, if you just put like a variable at the end, it will be returned if you don't have a statement at the end. So that's kind of what's happening there. Rest of the code. Okay, so let's show all, so that way I can just grab this. So we're going to say let city equal this. And this is where we take out this if statement and replace it with this match. If it so pleases. Okay. So we've got a city now, and so we should be able to find it, whether it's passed in or it's stored or we need a prompt for it. And then here, so instead of args.city, I believe we just need to pass it city. Great. And so we're passing it here. I believe this is where it's borrowed. We're passing a reference to it. And then we can use it here. Cool. All right. So now let's see if it works. So we're going to go up and we're going to do cargo build. And then we're going to do, actually, before I want to change where this is, where we are looking. So instead of weather CLI config, we're going to call it team view config. So that way it matches the binary name. And I might have to build that again because I changed that. And so now we're going to run it. Okay. So I didn't pass one in. There was no existing file. And so now I am going to say, I'm not going to do New York. Let's do Tokyo, because I am going on my trip in a month from today. So that's exciting. Cool. So we were able to put in another name, and it did return the weather in Tokyo. Let's run it again. So this time, hopefully we have something stored in, and I'll just run that cat tilde see dot team view config. And so right now it's just saving it as the word Tokyo in the file because it's the only thing that we're saving in there right now. But I feel like that's going to change whenever we start adding team members, office locations, maybe locations is what we're going to add. But we'll get there. Okay. So there's that. So now if we run this again without any parameters, it should read from the file. And it did. So here's the weather in Tokyo, because that's what we have stored. Nice. Okay, so that's good. We're getting somewhere. Like, how do I want to proceed? The other thing I want to do is have it return the current time. So let's go. Yeah, we'll do a new conversation. I'm going to hide that for right now. And let's take a look at our main function here. So I'm going to highlight that and say update. Update this function to also print out the current date and time for the city provided. This would be interesting because all that we give it is like a city. It's not validated. So like I could put in, I don't know, Neverland, right? But we don't know what that's going to do. Might be something that we look at, but it's going to have to translate like Tokyo into its time zone. And so I'm interested to see how it's going to do that. So here's the updated main function and includes printing the current date and time for this provided city. So here we are getting the city, getting the weather. Get the current date and time for the city, which is apparently available in the weather response. So weather.timezone, we're getting the current time plus the offset, the local time. Okay. And then is it displaying it? Current date and time. That's cool. Now you need to add the chrono crate to your cargo.toml. And also import it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that up here. So it is using a library to help us out. And I'm just going to say, how do I add the chrono library to the project? That's what I want. So a lot of times whenever I'm working with Rust, I don't know what the version is, or really sometimes the crate. And so it's really nice to just be able to ask it, how do I add it? And it brings back the version that I need. So I can just go and take it, copy, paste it in, which should make that go away. Except now it's going to be mad because we're not actually using it yet. So let's add this stuff. So this is all of the stuff to get the current time. Yeah, we'll copy that as well. And so that goes after the weather. We got some, there we go. So that's not available for right now. And then we're going to grab this line, so that way we're printing it. And so now we've got a little case of, oh, what's this? Use a deprecated associated function. Okay. So let's do this. We're going to highlight this line and say, update this code to not use deprecated. Yeah, I think that's what we want. Cool. That's always nice. Getting rid of those deprecations. So a question that we get asked a lot is, how can I use Tabnine to help with updated libraries? So this is a case where the IDE helped us out by giving us kind of the error information, reading the deprecated information, and even telling us what the new function would be. But what that doesn't do is actually rewrite the function for you. And so I was able to just highlight the function and then ask Tabnine to rewrite it for me. And I think that probably also would have worked if I just like right-clicked and said fix with Tabnine as well, because Tabnine does have access to kind of that error message information that we see whenever we hover over. And that's probably where it got it. Yeah, so it says like, don't use this one, don't use this function, use this function instead. So let's go ahead and insert that. And what's your problem? So this is something that's not in scope, and I'm pretty sure we can fix that just by, okay. We'll just ask it again. I think it probably needs something imported in. So how do, whoa, no. All right, over here, how do I resolve this error? And hopefully it will say you just need to add. To resolve this error, you should use from timestamp instead of from. Okay. It seems to be happy. Now there is this. So let's come over here. How do I resolve this error? See, to resolve this error, you need to update the weather struct in the weather API RS file to include time zone field. However, since we don't have access to that file in this context, we can modify the current code. Okay. This assumes that the time zone. If not, you may need to. So what changes would I need to make to, and I'm going to use an at mention here, at weather API am I spelling weather wrong? Why does it look like I spelled it wrong? Maybe it's just because I've been looking at the word for so long. Okay, so what changes what I need to make to the weather? Okay, nice. And so now it's going to actually tell us what we need to make in that. So to add the time zone field to the weather struct, you need to modify it as follows. So we need to add time zone, which is type I32, int32. So let's go over here and add that in. Okay. Swell. Let's see, this change adds the time as a, which I typically how OpenEther returns their time zone in seconds. Okay, so we're getting there. Mismatch types expected I64, found I32. So where are we pulling that out? So that's coming out of. All right, well, we'll just ask it. How do I resolve this error? Let's see, to resolve this error, you need to convert time zone offset to I64. Here's the correct line with the same indentation. Current time, and we can see, okay, so we're just doing I64 from. And so that's just, again, it's just what it said, converting the I32 to an I64 type. So let's insert that. Okay, we should be good. And now we can try it out. Okay. So let's build it. So let's do cargo build. And then we're going to do cargo run. Okay, so weather in Tokyo, current date and time is 9:25. So it is tomorrow. And it is 1:08. Is that correct? I don't think that's correct, because it should be 5:08. So there's something wrong. What depends on what the offset is here. What are we getting back? Let's print out. So I'm just going to add a print line. So we're going to do print line. Let's say offset. Getting flashbacks to turnip timer. Oh yeah. Oh, that was I had forgotten about that. Thank you. Dealing with time. I was hoping that this would be easy because we're just going from time zones. We're not adding or subtracting things. So I'm going to take that exception and see what it does, which means I'm going to build this, and then I'm going to run this. Offset is 9 hours. That's not right. Yeah, the zones. The time in Tokyo, like I'm in Eastern time. So how I do this is I switch AM to PM. So 4 PM, 4 AM, and then I add an hour because I believe. No, wait, the UTC offset, I believe, is 9. Right, so that's fine. I think I can even ask Tabnine, like, what is the UTC offset for Tokyo? I just don't even Google things anymore. Yeah, to display the offset for Tokyo, which is typically UTC plus 9. You can modify the line as follows. So because this is the offset, because to display it, we had to divide it by 3600. Do we have to divide it? That? So we're saying chrono UTC now. So we want to get the that timestamp, which is returned as, it's returned as a number of milliseconds. And then we're adding on the offset, which gives us an I64. And so, well, it says current date and time. Oh, okay, I see. We've named it local time here. So local time, and we're formatting it. Interesting. I don't know why it's off like that. Right, because the only thing we're getting there is the offset. The offset seems to be right because it is plus 9. Let's see what it says if we give it. Just going to hit up. Okay, we'll give it New York. I know what time it is here. So the offset is -4, which I think is correct. And so it says the time is 12:16. So 4 hours off. Yeah, so for some reason we're 4 hours off. I wonder if this is actually not returning UTC time. Right? Because what it's giving me is 9 hours. So 9 hours from 4, it's 13. Yeah. So this is not bringing back UTC time. Or wait. So current time Yeah, so it's like, oh, go away. It's like this is not actually bringing back UTC time. It's bringing back the current time of the machine. Plus the offset. And then local time is, okay, so from timestamp, current time, 0. Makes a new. I thought the hardest part was going to be figuring out like what time zone they're in, but like we get the offset from the weather call. Now it's just we have a problem with the displaying it. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to start a new conversation and say, what does this do? So this line of code calculates the current time for the specified city by adjusting the UTC time with the time zone offset. Here's a breakdown of what it does. Gets the current UTC timestamp. Timestamp converts UTC date time to a Unix timestamp, so number of seconds. This converts the time zone, which is likely an I-32 to an I-64. This adds the time zone offset in seconds. Okay, and then the result is stored in current time, which now represents the current time in the city's time zone as a Unix timestamp. The adjusted timestamp is okay, yeah, okay, cool. So now we're going to do the same thing with this. And I'm going to say, what does this do? All right. Okay, so the code block converts the adjusted timestamp into a datetime object and sets it to the local time zone. So I think this is what's happening. So like this, the current time is right, but then it's trying to put it back to the local time, which is very odd. Let's see if from timestamp fails. This converts the UTC date time to the local time zone of the system where the program is running. Well, we don't want that. No. Okay, let's do this. Let's get rid of this, and we're going to ask it again. So using this offset, calculate the local time for the given city. Okay, so here they're getting the UTC time, and then they are creating the local time using that time plus the time zone offset to get local time. Let's see if that makes any more sense. So, oh, I guess I could have left that highlighted. No. So highlight that, insert. Okay. So it uses existing time zone offset, weather data. Okay, so what is the problem here? So this is where, okay, so we need to do convert this to an I-64. Okay, as I64. We need to do what we did before. What was it? It was I64 from. I think that's actually what we wanted to do. Cool. It's happy now. So let's go cargo build, cargo run. Offset is 9 hours. The current time is 5:19 in the AM, and that is correct. I don't know where we got off track, but we fixed it. I really hate working with time. Yeah. Then I'm going to ask one thing. I kind of like doing this sometimes. Let's new conversation. Can this be simplified? The selected code block is already quite concise and efficient. However, we can make a small simplification by combining the UTC and local time calculations into a single line. Hello, welcome. Let's go ahead and do that because I don't see a reason to have this variable floating around. I know that it's going to go out of scope quickly and be cleaned up, but let's just do this. Let's just see. Still seems to be okay. Cargo build, cargo run. Cool. Let's run it with New York. Cool. 1621. All right. So we've got the location and the time coming back out. So that's nice. So let's go and take that one print line out. The offset, we don't care about that anymore. Cool. So now what we want to be able to do is store. We need our current location, and we need an array of other locations, or I don't know if array is the right word to say, but we want to be able to store information about our coworker locations or our office locations. So that way we can get all of the information back and kind of display it in a nice, pretty way. Okay, so let's go new location here, and I'm gonna new conversation, and we're probably going to have let's start by cleaning up the way the current city is saved. So if I pull this back up and I say cat and go into our user folder into the teams view config, right now it's just saving Tokyo, which is the current location. So let's update that to be more structured. So here, let's do this. And we'll ask it to, can we save the user's city in a structured format yeah, like a JSON file. I think a JSON file would be fine. So let's see what it does. Certainly, we can modify the code to save the user's city in a structured JSON format. Here's the updated version of the selected code that implements this change. Okay, so again, we're going through this match. Matches are great. I believe these are called arms. So matches have different arms. So if it's some C, we're just returning the C. This is the case where you've passed in the city. None. So this is the case where it's really the other case. So you either have something or you have nothing, right? So none. If there wasn't one passed in, then we're going to grab the home directory and join on this. We're going to take out this .json. I guess we could leave it. We could make it be a .json file. That's fine. Okay, and so then if there's content, we are going to use serta.json to parse it. And then we are going to grab the city from it. And then if we don't have it, we're going to prompt for a city name. And we're going to read what was input in, trim it, and then we're going to save it in the config. And I believe this is just going to like overwrite it. Okay. So let's do that. Let's insert it to make that change. I think that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this old file. That way we're kind of cleaning things up as we go. And then we'll compile or build. And then we will run with nothing. And so now we need a city name. So I'm going to say Tokyo again. And then we get the weather in Tokyo and the current date and time. And so now let's take a look at our file. So let's do cat. From the user directory, it's going to be .team view config.json. And here we go. Nice JSON file. Cool. Let's see. I feel like we need to extract this out because this is going to get like the story updating the config file is going to be interesting. So let's say, can we extract the reading and writing into separate functions in another module? Okay, so we can extract the reading and writing into a new module. Here's how we can refactor selected code. And then here is, yeah, okay, so these are changes. Before I do this, I want to check something. So does the clap library handle storing the city name in a file for future use? Okay, it doesn't. Okay, and then it's basically giving us the same thing. I was just checking because, like, I think Oak Cliff had something, or there was a library, but it's fine. Okay, so let's go back up to here, and we are going to implement this. So let's create a new module called config in config.rs. So let's go over here. Oop. New file, config.rs. And so that's open. And this is the contents of config.rs. So we're going to keep that. And now we're going to refactor main.rs to use these new functions. So this is all highlighted, and we're only changing this let's see equal match args.city. So I should be able to just hit insert here. This is probably mad because we have not added it to the top. So I can go up here and say use, or no, this is where I say mod config. And then we can remove that because that is now, should be now part of this file. Right? Wait, DIRs? Are we just not using DIRs anymore? Okay. Write config, read config, write config. So this is a little nicer. We've pulled out this functionality to get ready to be able to store other information. So we got entered the city name. There's the read line. We got the city, and then we're writing the config with the city. And then the right config there. We're getting config path. Yeah. Get config path. Okay. Read config. Okay, so let's do this. So we've got a read and we've got a write. Let's add a function that gets the config. Create a, before we do that, let's define what the config looks like. So create a struct to represent the data stored in the config file. We need to save. It's like, what do we want to call that? The it's the users. It's like the current users location, the current users city, and multiple we'll say office locations the office location you know what, let's do it. Let's think about it this way. Let's do it as coworkers and multiple coworkers. A coworker has a name and a city. A first name, last name, and a city. Okay, so let's see what this gives us. Certainly, so I'll create a struct. I'll create a struct to represent the data stored in the config file based on requirements. We'll include the current user's city and a list of coworkers, each with a first name, last name, and city. Here's the implementation. Good. So we got a coworker with a first name, last name, and a city. We've got our config struct here, which includes the user's city and the coworkers, which are stored in a vector. And then what we got? Implement config. So a new user. Okay. Okay, so this is Rust is a functional language, and so it's creating like functions attached to this implementation. Oh, good, we got details. So a coworker struct to represent each coworker with their first name, last name, and city. A config struct that contains the user's city, and a vector of coworker instances. Both structs derive serialized and deserialized traits from Certa, allowing easy serialization and deserialization from JSON. An imp block for config with a new method to create a new config instance with a given user city. An add coworker method to easily add new coworkers to the config. I like this. You can now update read config and write config functions to use this new config struct. Ooh, it's gone ahead and like done the next step for us. That's kind of nice. These updated functions now work with the config struct, providing a more structured and type safety way to handle the configuration data. This is great. Okay, so we're going to come up here and I'm going to insert this. All right, so we've got our coworker, we've got our config, and coworkers. I think it's just saying that's not being used or never used. Okay, and so now we should be able to update these. The read config. So it's going to result in a config. Great. And write config. Okay. So we got read config and write config. Do we have the standard path buff and standard JSON value? Yeah, okay. Cool. So I'm going to highlight these two, the read and write. I'm going to insert, and then I'll just remove these. Cool. Now main is upset, but we're working on storing stuff. Nice. Okay. Oh, interesting. We don't need that anymore. I guess that makes sense because we now have structs that we can use for serializing and deserializing. La 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 la. So let's go over and make main work with this now. So let's say, go over here, update this to use the config module to read and write the user's city preference. I didn't know if I would need to like mention it, but it seems to know. So what do we got here? Config path equals get config path. I feel like we shouldn't need to put that in here, so we'll save that. So we've got config, read config, match config, read config. Okay, save city. If save city is empty, save city. This is all other branches. We're prompting and returning the city. Oh yeah, because the sum. Oh, none. Yeah, okay. So we get a match and a match. I think this is fine. So let's insert that. Save. So what do we got here? So no method named is empty found in the config struct. Okay, because it did it a little wrong. So this is, we're going to call this config. So yeah, so if config, so if not, config dot user, wait, not, well, there's add coworker. Oh, I think I have to pull it in a different way. Is it this? I thought I could use dot. All right, so I feel like I'm trying to do too much myself whenever it didn't do it right. So let's clear this. So update this to use the config from config to read and write the city's user preferences. Oh my gosh, I'm almost at my 2 hours. Let's see. Get config path. Don't like that, but if okay, config. Yeah, that's better. That's better. So using an at mention here did help pull in the information. So I feel like it was kind of guessing before. And that's kind of the name of the game, is like you need to give the model the right context to be able to do the job. So I am going to insert that. Let's see if that makes everything happier. Oops. So what do we got? Field user sitting of config is private. Okay. So we can go over here and say make the properties public. Just add pub. Okay. So let's, what do we got here? Add coworker. Method add coworker is never used. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're getting there. I appreciate that you added it for me, but we're not there yet. Okay. So we'll leave that alone for right now. I think this is what we want. I am going to remove that JSON file. So let's remove .team JSON. Let's compile or build, and then we'll run it again. It should prompt me for city. And we should probably make that. Stop. No, not you, Siri. I said city. So it's going to prompt us for a name. We should probably say like enter your city, Tokyo, and then we get the stuff. And if we take a look at that file, cat in the user directory .team view JSON, we got the user city and Tokyo. Great. Cool. So now what we can do is we can update it to print out, we can have it print out information about you. So let's go, well, let's go in here and change that. So enter your city name. I feel like this is, look at this. So, we can probably clean that up later. But we'll go with it because I really want to get further before like these 2 hours is up. Enter your city name, because I haven't even done any tests. I want to be able to add tests. Okay, so I made those changes. So let's highlight the main function here. And we're going to say, update this function to print out the weather for the current city and the weather for the current city and the weather for each coworker specified in the config file and their current date, or let's say with their current date and time. All right. So it created a print weather function, so that's nice. Created the print weather function inside that function. That's interesting. Okay, so what this updated function does the following. It reads the config file and updates it if necessary. It defines the inner async function print weather that handles fetching and printing weather for a given city. It prints the weather for the user's city. It iterates through the coworkers in the config file and prints the weather for each of their cities. Oh, good. It does include the first name and last name. Great. Cool. Let's insert that. And then let's see what we have to fix. The first name of the coworker is private. Okay, well, we can fix that. Let's go over here to our config. And I think we just need pub. Oh, wait, wrong place. Here we go. So, oh, I should save that. Oh, nope. We'll just do this. Update this so all properties are public. Insert. I didn't do it. Insert. There we go. And so now main is happy. We should be able to, we don't have any coworkers right now, but should be able to build it. What is it saying? They're never used. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's considered dead code. It's happy. We'll fix it. Okay, so we're gonna run. Coworkers weather. No coworkers. We can make a quick change here and say only show coworker weather if there are coworkers in the config file. So here's our little print. And so let's see what the diff looks like. So really, there's one change, and it is down here. We just wrapped it with if not config.coworkers.is empty. So I'm going to show all, and we'll just go ahead and insert that. Cargo build. It's still mad about those things that we're not using. Cargo run. No coworkers, didn't show up. Awesome. Let's go. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to add coworkers. So I'm going to highlight the main function again, because that's kind of where everything happens. And or actually, I'm going to not highlight anything because I think it's going to need to see like everything. So add a command to add a new coworker to the config file. That sounds good. Okay. So certainly on a new command, here's how we can modify the code. Let's update the arg struct to include the new subcommand. Command, add coworker. Okay. Now let's update the main function to handle this command. So if some command add coworker, yada, yada, yada. Rest of this stays the same. So here we can. Okay, so this is kind of the start way to do it. So the command is add coworker, and then we just give it the first name, the last name, and their city. The command will add the coworker to the config file and then exit. If no subcommand is provided, the program will continue normal weather reporting functionality. Remember to update the config rs file to include the add coworker method if it's not already there. Yeah, that we've already got that. These changes will integrate the new add coworker functionality. Okay, so let's implement that because I want to be able to get things. So first we will make these changes. So clap, we need not only parser, but subcommand. Thank you. See, autocomplete is still very helpful. So we've got derive, parser, command author version, long about equal none. Got the city, and then we add our subcommand. And we need to add this struct as well. And so we are doing first name, last name, city. And for this, I believe, okay, so these are the same. So right above where we get the city, okay, so that all looks good. So let's go ahead and do our cargo build. And then let's do, I'm going to run the help command just to see what that changed. So yeah, we now have commands for add coworker. So if I go in here, should be able to add coworker help. So it gives us the usage, team viewer, add coworker, first name, last name, city. So we'll keep it like this. I think something that would be nice is if you don't pass in those parameters, that it just prompts you. But for the sake of time, we won't go that far in. But I do want to add a coworker. So let's go here, add coworker, and we're going to give it first name. And this is going to be, we'll say Bob. Last name, Jones. And city, we will say, that's Tokyo. Where do we want to put Bob Jones? Let's put him in Portland. I think I need to be more specific. So let's say Portland, Oregon. Okay, so we got it even put in a nice little thing. Added coworker Bob Jones from Portland, Oregon. So now if we run just regular, failed to parse JSON error decoding response body, missing field main in line 1 of column 40. Okay, so it did bring back our information, so that's nice. So Bob Jones, I wonder if it's not able to parse the JSON from the API. So that's another place where we could probably better handle, because we're not validating the cities. So that's interesting. So let's take a look at our file that we are working with. So that looks right. So we are doing Portland, Oregon. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Maybe I need something that, let's code dot team open. Let's change this. We're going to say Atlanta. Close that. And now we'll run it again. There we go. So it was able to find Atlanta. So that's a problem where it's not doing very well with parsing the city name. So something we should do is figure out a way to validate the city whenever it's being added. But we're running short on time. Let's do some testing. So I've not actually done any testing. We're going to go over time. It's fine. It's my time. I've never done any testing with Rust. So let's see. So how do we add unit testing to this project? To add unit testing to the Rust project, you can follow these steps. Create a new directory called test in the root of your project. Can do. Back over here. And create a new file for your test, for example, main test.rs. All right. New file. In your cargo file, you don't need to add anything special for unit tests, as Rust automatically recognizes tests in the test directory. Write your unit tests in the main test file. Here's an example of how you might structure your tests. Okay. To run these tests, use the cargo test in your terminal. You might need to make some adjustments in your main RS file to make certain functions and structs public so they can be used in your tests. Okay. For testing functions that use command line arguments, you might want to refactor your main function to separate the argument parsing and main logic. This will allow you to test the logic without having to simulate command line arguments. For async tests as shown. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's just try something. Let's do this. And by this I mean highlight this function, which I'm not doing a very good job of. And we'll say, how can we refactor this? What was that? How can we refactor this function to be easier to test? Ooh. To make this function easier to test, we can refactor it by extracting smaller testable functions and reducing responsibilities of the main function. Here's a refactored version of the code. Okay. Oh, so we got handle command, get user city, get API key, print weather, print coworkers. Okay, the refactored version extracts smaller focused functions that are easier to test individually, separates concerns, making each function responsible for a specific task, reduces the complexity of the main function, making it easier to understand and maintain, improves error handling by using question operator consistently. These changes make the code more modular and testable. You can now write unit tests for each of these functions independently, which make your testing process more manageable and comprehensive. That sounds great. Yeah. Okay, so let's take it. So I'm going to insert that over what we had. As always, we're going to see what made it upset. So here we've got config path, mismatch types. Handle command. Config, right. I think the way that we're doing the config module could be improved a little bit, but like we won't do that right now. How do we fix this error? To fix this error, we need to change the reference to the config path. The right config function is expecting a path buff, but we're a path buff, but we're passing an path. We can fix this by dereferencing config path once. Here's the corrected line. Does that make that go away? That did not seem to fix it. To fix this error, we need to convert the path to a path buff. We can do this using the as path member. Okay. Hey, it went away. Yay. Just keep asking until it's no longer a problem. And this is probably going to end up being the same change. I feel like there's some more efficiencies that we can create in there. Again, this is where I think there's some updates that we could do for that config module that does the reading and writing. So instead of actually like having to call these write configs and the get config path, those get called in there, and there's like an update function or something. I'm sure it could be better, but I want to write some tests. So let's move along. All right, cool. So let's make sure that we still work. We're going to build. It's still mad that basically right now there's no way to update your city, which is fine. And whenever we do set this city, so get user city, this piece here is not, yeah, it's not doing that new. So it's doing this like city.clone user.city, yeah. Instead of doing like creating a new config and putting the city into it, which would make it happier. But we've built it. Now let's run it. It still works. Let's add another teammate here, or another coworker. So we will say, instead of Bob, let's say Alice. She can be Alice Smith. Whoa, no. Okay, and then for the city, let's put them in Denver. Great, so we've added Alice Smith. We are going to just run it. And so now we've got the information in Denver, and we've got the information. I was like, everywhere there's broken clouds. Have you noticed that? I don't know if that's suspicious, but everything else is seems to be different. Great. Cool. So we've done the thing. Now let's actually generate some tests. But for this, what I want to do is use the testing agent. So let's come over here. So let's select a function, and let's select this. When are we going to get the capabilities of Claude Dev, or be able to use Tabnine with Claude Dev somehow? That's a good question. Let me bring that up with our engineers and see kind of what it is that we can do with that. But right now you have all the features of Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So I think I need to look into it a little more, but I think basically Claude Dev is doing things that we would do in our extension, like on top of the Claude model. And so we just need to, there's probably agents that we need to build. So let's run this. Let's see what it does. So this is a function for get user city. And let's say select a function to trigger the test. I can just say that. Let's see, I have a file. What's this? I don't have a file. Do you have a file? Main tests. Continue. So it's generating a test plan. generating the test file template. Okay. And so now I should be able to add some tests. Yeah, no problem. So should return the city name when provided as an object, an argument. See what that test looks like. Okay, well, let's insert it. Let's insert some tests here. What's another? Let's see. Should prompt for city input when not provided as an argument. So we're generating that test. Okay, insert that. Should return the city from config when not provided as an argument. Okay, and I'll be interested to see how it does that. Okay, and there's a lot of other things, but I think these tests they do the main thing. So let's figure out what's going on here. Unresolved import crate config. Okay. Whoop. How do I add this crate? Oh, I'm in test plan. Wait. How do I add this crate? There we go. Okay. Wait, it says note that the version is just an example. That's great. Let's go here. Cargo. I don't know what it'd get mad at if it can't find that. How do I fix this error? Let me try this. Let me get rid of these. And the cargo toml. Let me get rid of this. Main tests. Oh, it doesn't seem to care. Okay, it didn't need those things apparently. Because it's saying test use super. Okay, well let's see. Do I need to cargo build this? Cargo build cargo test. We got some warnings. Oh, not in scope. Not in scope. Okay, so it did need some of those things. So use let's see. Let's do this. How do I import use this function from config.rs? You need to import it. There we go. So maybe I did need that. This assumed that config is the module name where Git is defined. If you've already imported So what do we got here? Consider importing one of these items instead. What's this one? Could not find config in the crate root. Let's try accepting that and see. It's probably something to do with how I created my modules. So you need to ensure that the config module is properly defined and accessible in your crate. Here are a few steps you can take. Create a config rs file in your source directory if it doesn't already exist. It should exist. Boom, there you are. Okay, next. In the config rs file, define the config struct and the get function. Yeah, okay. Make sure to declare your config. Tells Rust to look for it. Okay, so now if we go over here, so mod config, yeah. Do we need this part? We've declared the module. See, this is... That's not being used. Well, I really wanted to be able to, run these tests and see things go green. It would have been very helpful for me. Oh no, opened up the dictionary. Okay, so this is fine. I wonder, config, that's public. Like that's just an implementation. You don't have to make that public. These are all public functions. let's try. Okay, so let's see if we can test something in the config. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say test, which should launch the test agent. Okay, don't have a test file, so it's going to create one, config.test.rs. Continue. I think this is actually like in the wrong file, in the wrong folder, because it should be in the tests folder. Let's try that again. Nothing happened. We're gonna reset. Okay, so I'm gonna hit test. I don't have a test file, and instead of source, this needs to be in test, and I'm gonna do test-config rs continue. Generating test plan, generating test file template. Okay. Sure. Let's add that one. Insert. Should return an error when the home directory cannot be determined. Sure. That's good. Okay, cool. And I am going to get rid of this one. Did that not? Oh, whoops! It should be in test. That was a typo on my end. Move. Let's get rid of this. little cleanup. No problem. No problem. We're gonna get rid of this one because it's something about the way I have this set up is not happy. So we've got config tests. Let's clear this and say cargo test. And it's not happy. Yeah, cannot find config in the crate root. So there's something it does not like about the way that I did these modules, apparently. Let's ask a question. Nope. Go back to chat. Is this module set up correctly? Based on the provided code, the module seems to be set up correctly. The config struct and its associated methods are defined properly, and the utility functions for managing the configuration file are also well structured. However, if you want to explicitly define this as a module, you can wrap the entire content in a module declaration. Here's how you can do that. This wraps all the code, all the existing code in a config module, which can then be used in other parts of your project by importing it with the use crate config. Maybe that's it. So let's try that. Okay, and so then of course this is mad. So I think now we have to say, instead of mod config, we say use crate config. Unresolved import. No config in the root. Oh no, did I do it? No. So we'll say, how do I resolve this error? Okay, so mod config. That's what we had in there. And so what's this one? Cannot find function get config path. So maybe this is something else now. Oh. So I guess now we need to say create. Does that solve it? Okay. We're going to roll that back. It did not like that. So there's a little bit of Rust stuff that I don't understand. I'm not understanding that's going on. So I will look into that. But yeah, so we were rolling right along, adding features kind of incrementally. And we did get to the result that I wanted to see. We didn't have the test that I wanted. But I think this could probably be cleaned up a little more. We saw some duplication of code. But yeah, so this was kind of what I wanted for my kind of V1. So we see our weather and everybody else's weather in their current time. So that way, if you're like, what time is it where Alice is? It will come back and tell you, things like that. Simple example, but I wanted to do something using Rust. I will be back next week, probably working on something different. If there's something that you want to see, please let me know. You can find me most places on the internet at it's Aydrian, ITSAYDRIAN, because that's me. And yeah, let me go back over to this and this button here. And I think that will wrap it up for today. I will turn this into a beautiful blog post that you'll see in the next couple weeks. And we'll be back next week for more of this. I hope you enjoyed. I hope your questions were answered. And, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Let me get the band to play me out. So here we go. Yeah. TTFN, everyone. Bye. I could have timed that a little better. Okay. Bye.